Well, the Angels are excited about their top prospect, Andrew Heaney, who they got from the Dodgers, who also made a move to get him from the Marlins. Now, trades are common. Some of our analysts here at MLB Network were dealt before their rookie year, including Ron Darling, John Smoltz, Carlos Pena, and Sean Casey, all before making a name for themselves in the big leagues. But you wonder, why would a top prospect like Andrew Heaney get traded twice? And are you still a #1 prospect when 2 GMs said, yeah, you can have him? It's time for Digging In. 2015 is going to be an important season for a handful of guys who were sent packing more than once in the minors and are now expected to live up to their prospect promise. Now, I'm not picking on Heaney, who did struggle in less than 10 games in Miami, but he was traded from the Dodgers to Anaheim for Howie Kendrick straight up. Heaney for Kendrick. He's a top prospect, after all. So was Anthony Gose, who was billed as the next Devon White. He was also traded twice before breaking into the big leagues. He was dealt again this offseason. He's going to battle for a starting spot in center field for the Detroit Tigers. Travis d'Arnaud hit 13 homers in 108 games for the Mets last year. He was a first-round pick by the Phillies back in '07 before he was traded to the Blue Jays, only to be packaged in that R.A. Dickey trade. Is this the year d'Arnaud finally puts it all together? Jake Odorizzi had a decent 2014 season with the Rays after being drafted by Milwaukee, only to be traded to Kansas City for Zach Greinke, and then he came over to Tampa Bay as part of the James Shields deal. His ERA was over 4 last year, but he was one of the better strikeout pitchers in the American League. 2015 marks a very important season for this right-hander. Now, there are a few success stories of prospects being dealt twice. Chris Archer began his career with the Cleveland Indians, but was traded in December of 2008 to the Cubs. 2 years later, he was sent to the Rays. He's been terrific the last 2 years, and the Rays locked him up for it through 2021. But the success story of prospects being traded more than once is Gio Gonzalez, who was traded 3 times before his rookie season with the Oakland A's in 2008. This 2-time All-Star has had a strong 7-year career so far. But even with those success stories, more times than not, there's a reason teams bid farewell to these prospects. Ask Brett Wallace, remember him? Former first-round pick who went from the Cardinals farm system to Oakland's, then to Toronto's, only to end up in Houston. Started last year in Baltimore's system, then went back to Toronto. He'll now try to earn a spot with the San Diego Padres in spring training. No Hall of Famer was ever traded twice in the minors, and of all the players to sign a $100 million contract, not one of them was traded more than once as a prospect. Maybe this handful of guys will prove us wrong, who knows, but usually there's a reason they're sent packing. When you see a guy so talented that they're drafted in the first round or second round, that they're traded more than once during their career as a minor league player, you think, red flag, what's the problem with this player? But maybe we're wrong. Of the guys we see here, Heaney, Gose, d'Arnaud, Odorizzi, do you think to yourself, Greg, you're a little out of control? Heaney's going to be a stud, or d'Arnaud's going to be an all-star catcher. Which one are you confident about?
I don't know about going to the Hall of Fame.
Well, I was just making that as a mention.
No, it's a good point, though. I think there is something to it. Listen, I think there's more in play now in terms of trading prospects. I think for a long time there, clubs overvalued prospects. Every GM wanted to brag, I have the best minor league system in baseball, but by the way, your major league team stinks. We've gotten away from that a little bit. So you saw this winter, all the activity, prospect for prospect even being traded. So I think it's less in play now than historically. But to get back to your question, I really like Andrew Heaney. I do.
You do?
I do. And I think for a very good Angels team this year, he's going to be a big part of their success this year.
Now, Ron, you were traded right after you were drafted. But you weren't traded twice. You were traded once. What did that feel like?
Well, I was traded almost less than 6 months, though, after I was drafted. So I was the #1 draft pick of the Rangers. I thought I was going to be there forever. Within 6 months, I'm with the Mets. And I'll never forget it. I was in spring training with the Rangers. Don Zimmer called me in his office and said, hey, listen, young man, you're going to go to Oklahoma City. You're going to make 3 starts, and on April 26th, you're going to pitch against the Minnesota Twins in Texas, and we're going to have a full house, and you're ready to go, just a little more seasoning. I drove from Pompano to Plant City. It's 4 hours in Florida. I was traded between that time in Pompano and Plant City. So what happens, and the serious part about it for these young kids, is that the first time you're traded, it hurts your feelings, you know, you feel bad, but you know that someone covets you and wants you to be over there. The second time, you can start to work on your confidence a little bit.
Right.
And not only that, is that a lot of times you're traded for, and the team that trades for you says, you know what, I see something that he doesn't do correctly. I'm going to change him.
Oh.
And that can happen twice when you're traded like that, and that can really alter your learning progress.
Yeah, and I think there's some growing conversation and evidence that that gulf between AAA and the major leagues is getting harder. And so if you're all of a sudden, as you said, getting traded twice and changing systems, working with new coaches, trying to acclimate to those different surroundings, but then also trying to make that jump to the major leagues, that's going to be very difficult. And so I think there's some reason why there's a correlation here.
It's interesting, though, right?
Yeah, and make friends and be a good teammate and trade it to a team that the guy who wants to be the next catcher, you're a catcher, you're traded to the same team, he's looking at you like, I can't stand this guy, he's going to take my spot. I mean, it's crazy, the scrum of trying to get to the major leagues.
But how about Gio Gonzalez, proving 3 GMs wrong? Traded 3 times before he breaks into the big leagues. A 20-game winner and an all-star, Gio Gonzalez.